frustrating day of light winds, we're back. The 35th America's Cup gets underway again today. Two teams have gone. Jimmy Spithill's defenders have peeled off. They'll return in the America's Cup match itself. And we've bid adieu to Frank Camas and Groupama Team France. For the remaining teams, it's straight into the next round. Emirates Team New Zealand and hotshot new kid on the block Peter Burling face five-time Olympic champion Sir Ben Ainslie and his British team Land Rover BAR. And with Nathan Aldridge's Artemis Racing up against Dean Barker's SoftBank Team Japan, there really is nowhere to hide. It's time to go hard or go home. Welcome to the Louis Vuitton America's Cup Challenger Playoff semi-final. So hello and welcome to the beautiful island of Bermuda. These stunning turquoise waters providing the stage for the thrilling sporting drama of the 35th America's Cup, which has reached a critical phase. I'm Alistair Eakin alongside Ken Reid, veteran America's Cup skipper and president of North Sails. We're ready for the Challenger Playoff semi-finals. So here's how the standings look after the two phases of round-robin racing. The Louis Vuitton America's Cup qualifiers won by the defender Oracle Team USA, who leave us for 2 weeks now, carrying with them a bonus point through to the match itself. The Kiwis, the top-ranked challenger, and with first choice over their opponents for the semi-finals, they opted for Sir Ben Ainslie's British crew. That leaves the Swedes against the Japanese and the French out of the hunt. So today's semi-finals feature New Zealand against Great Britain, followed by Sweden against Japan. 2 races each today. Each semi is the best of 9 overall. The first crew to win 5 races reaches the Challenger final. And the conditions are much changed from yesterday. I'm happy to report wind speeds of up to 20 knots are forecast. And that means boats flying across the Great Sound. It means white-knuckle, adrenaline-fueled racing. It's going to be fun. First up then, the opening race of the Challenger Playoff semi-finals. Peter Burling's outstanding New Zealand crew against Sir Ben Ainslie's improving British. And the Kiwis, by all accounts, didn't take long to decide that their choice of opposition would be the Brits. They beat them with something to spare in both races of the round-robin stage, and clearly they believe they're vulnerable. Helmsman Peter Burling is expecting some rough stuff from Sir Ben Ainslie in the pre-start.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll come out swinging, and for ourselves, you know, that's great practice. You know, there's some pretty aggressive starters around the fleet, and it's something that we plan on, you know, countering that with a bit of aggression as well. So it should be a really, really interesting day out there, and I'm sure, you know, you'll see a good fight.
Emirates Team New Zealand have looked strong in all conditions so far. Could it be the hydraulic pedal power, allowing them to shift gears better than others, or could it be that fancy box of buttons that Glenn Ashby uses to trim the wing? Or could it be cool and collected young superstar Peter Burling setting the pace for others to follow? Well, the real answer, all of the above.
Well, the British were delighted to have seen the racing abandoned yesterday owing to their struggles in the light air. The change in conditions this morning will have been greeted with loud cheers as they drew their curtains back this morning. Certainly Sir Ben Ainslie's happy with what he sees.
Yeah, good conditions today, perfect for racing. Looks like 14 to 18 knots out there on the race course. Quite shifty conditions as well, so I think for the spectators it's going to be some really close, high-octane racing out there. We're looking forward to it.
Team GBR dodged a bullet yesterday. They've not had a great setup when the breeze is right at the bottom of the allowable wind range, hence the fact that they really weren't thrilled with the prospect of competing at all. And what a difference a day makes. Breeze on here on the Great Sound, putting Land Rover BAR back in their high-speed, super aggressive mode, blowing a bit of hope in for Great Britain.
So we are all set for a brilliant day of top flight sailing. Great wind, great competition, and a great course. This is where it'll all unfold, Ken.
Well, welcome to the Great Sound of Bermuda, the perfect track for this 35th America's Cup. The L-shaped race course includes a 2-minute start sequence followed by the critical blast reach to Mark 1. We hope to get off 5 quick legs with and against the puffy 15-knot southerly breeze, followed by a very short sprint to the finish.
So it is the perfect stage, the most beautiful of settings for the next phase of this 35th America's Cup. Some frustration yesterday Not so today. It is all on. Thrilling prospects for this afternoon, given the wind. There really could be some fireworks. Peter Burling, the young gun, the Iceman, so calm in his environment, pitting his wits against the greatest Olympic sailor of all time in Sir Ben Ainslie, whose team have been battling some inconsistencies. New Zealand with port entry for this first race of the day. And the pre-start will be as critical as ever. Let's check in with Joey Newton, who's our man on the water today, part of the American team. Joey, we heard both skippers in advance of this race talking about the tactics and the policies. Aggression seems to be top of the agenda in the pre-start.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it, Ali. We'll sort of see. I think the conditions are playing a little bit into the British team's hands. They certainly weren't keen to race yesterday in the light. So they'll be happy to race in this bit more breeze today, but it's going to be pretty hard to bet against the Kiwis. Their handling around the course has really looked perfect so far, so maybe expect some fireworks today.
Certainly that is the vibe. We're going to be seeing some very high speeds of these boats this afternoon, possibly threatening the top end of the 40-knot mark. So here we go then, race number 1 of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup Challenger Playoff semi-finals, the opening race of the day. New Zealand against Great Britain, Burling against Ainslie. And we've seen some pretty aggressive moves, haven't we, in plenty of these pre-starts, Kenny? What's going on out there now?
Well, this one already, we've seen kind of that leading back position that very often is held by the person coming in from the port tack entry, which was Emirates Team New Zealand. We've seen that flip-flop twice. They've actually kind of cut each other off twice now. Emirates Team New Zealand is pushing very low in the box. They're still early for the line, and they know it. Here comes Ben Ainslie to try to attempt that hooking maneuver. He's been very aggressive down on this lay line, this yellow line on the side of the screen. That they can't really go much further beyond that. Really early still for Emirates Team New Zealand. Ainslie's trying to set him up. Which side is he going to try to pass him on?
For the moment, Peter Burling having none of it, and of course all these maneuvers happening at high speed as we approach the start time. It's going to be a delicate one for the Kiwis, just across on point when it comes to the start. Emirates Team New Zealand, but Land Rover BAR and Sir Ben Ainslie not far behind. A wonderful, fascinating duel in the early exchanges.
Crucial and aggressive. Peter Burling told us in that pre-race interview that he thought it was going to be aggressive. Man, he doesn't look too flustered, though, does he? They got a little bit of a gap off to windward, up high on the starting line. That gave him a better angle and a better boat speed into mark number 1.
And they are flying. 44 knots. That's as quick as we've seen from anybody here in Bermuda.
Ali, Great Britain cannot make mistakes against this team. We just saw a little bit of a press, a bows kind of slamming into the water in a bit of an unforced error coming into that mark. They just can't make mistakes. They're not going to be able to make mistakes. They're going to have to sail perfect races here because the Kiwis have shown to be very solid all the way around the race course.
An early jibe from the British crew. The Kiwis setting the pace at the moment. Not a huge amount in it. Just look at these speeds that we're seeing. There's going to be some high-octane stuff this afternoon, as Ben Ainslie predicted.
You're Ben Ainslie right now. You're keeping it close. Come on, boat speed. They've been working on appendages. Everybody's working on appendages, but for sure they've been working on appendages in order to try to get better control, better lift, better stability. They need those things to be working because, again, the Kiwis just don't make many big mistakes.
My neck.
The Kiwis won both of their contests in the qualifying stage. Round robin won by almost a minute and a half. The second time that they met, of course, Sir Ben Ainslie and Great Britain had to retire Flying into gate 2.
Yeah, they got it close and they're going to get a split, an easy split, not having to do that Celia maneuver, that last-minute jibe right at the gate. So Ben Ainsley got kind of that split he was looking for as the boat behind. But a slam by Ainsley. We're looking out on the race course right now. They just pressed their bows back in again.
Small errors will cost them.
Something's wrong on board Land Rover BAR right now. They've stopped. They've stopped racing. The guys are all looking around. Something's wrong on board the boat.
So this could be a very dramatic moment for Land Rover BAR. We know that there is a much greater risk of trouble in these high winds, of course.
You get it on it.
Let's not ruin the wing. I've got 0 on the camber ramp, and the wing's still got camber in it, so something's broken.
Well, they're stopping altogether by the looks of
well,
things.
yeah, I think we're...
I heard something's broken inside the wing.
I don't want to, you know, we're not going to win this race from here, so... Okay, I think the smart thing is to...
Well, the only thing is if we can trick around and they have one.
Yeah.
Mate, I'm on 0.
Come on, boys, tell us what's wrong.
Yeah, what is the decision here? I mean,
they're looking around.
Camber limiting round strut.
Well, it's looking very much as if they're going to be calling it quits. How damaging to their prospects.
Fooling around with the wing down on the bottom side of the boat. Those guys are not normally.
You still got the issue.
Yeah, I mean, when he cambers, he's going to be able to go as far as he wants. So out of every tap, we're going to be on max camber.
Okay, plus the wing. Okay, all right. Okay, well, let's just we'll retire from this race. Race committee, Land Rover BAR.
Go ahead, Land Rover BAR.
Yeah, we're going to have to retire from this race. Over.
Confirmation.
Thank you, Land Rover BAR.
Confirmation from Sir Ben Ainsley that the
Get
British
the,
crew
chase
are
boats on.
retiring from their opening
Yeah, I've got the green
Challenger
mark, yeah.
playoff semi-final against the Kiwis. Dramatic stuff out there on the Great
Got a
Sound of
problem
Bermuda.
with
The wing
camber arm in the wing.
of their boat is causing all kinds of problems. Only the third leg of 7. Kiwis already beginning to stretch out at the time, but they've had to come to a grinding halt, and who knows how damaging that might be to their overall prospects for the next day or two, Kenny.
We heard, I believe we just heard somebody on board the boat say they've broken a camber arm inside the wing, which creates not the twist, but the general overall shape and depth to the wing, the front and back elements.
So this is when it happened.
It's broken. We got a problem?
Something's broken, yeah. Camber ramp's broken.
Okay, slowing up.
You heard it right there, camber arms broken.
It's broken. We got a problem?
Something's broken, yeah. Camber ramp's broken.
Okay, slowing up.
The camber arm. So can he explain
I'm not sure if
the
it's a
significance?
camber arm or camber ram. It could be a hydraulic ram or a...
Yeah, we need to get the pusher out here. Like ASAP, James.
Then we'll be able to go downwind. We won't be able to judge.
The camera arm's pushing up. We're in quite a good spot if we back up from here.
Freddie Carr taking a good
James, we'll
look
start
inside
backing
there.
up from here, okay?
It's up against the...
Just, yeah. Keep his head to wind, James, if you can. So you just had to back up the other way a bit.
Crisis time in the British camp.
Well, they got to get it fixed for the next race. That's the key right now. The Kiwis, I believe usually the protocol here, we'll find out in a minute, is that the Kiwis need to get through this gate, and then the officials will actually call the race off and give the race win to the Kiwis. They don't have to sail all the way around the course. called black flagging the race.
What a contrast between the two outfits here. Peter Burling in charge of Emirates Team New Zealand, having effectively been handed the race. The race has been black flagged, so the British disqualified from the opening contest of their Challenger semi-final.
Emirates Team New Zealand. We're just wondering whether we should continue on or whether we are now finished, considering yes, queue for GBR.
This is the umpires. We have black flagged GBR and awarded the race to Emirates Team New Zealand.
Nice, boys, we're done. Okay, thank you, guys. We'll stand by.
We're done, and so they are.
Let's just hope the Brits aren't done for the day. Certainly something that can likely be fixed overnight, but a camber arm is typically quite an intricate carbon fiber piece of kit that you just don't have one laying around, and typically has to be glued into the wing apparatus. A bunch of really good shore team folks are going to be looking all over this to try to figure out, you know, there's contingency plans for everything, but if a major piece breaks, there's nothing you can do about that.
Well, their
Let
worst
the bow go
fears
to the left, James, so that we go to the
confirmed.
limit of it.
Major issues to attend
Bow
to
to the
here,
left, James,
and
because we want the wind to push us off.
not much time to sort it out, given that we will see Sweden against Japan next up, and then the Brits due back on the water, starting out for race number 2 of their semi-final campaign. What a calamity.
Oh, shame, just a shame. It's certainly exactly, you look at all those intricate little units in there, there's hydraulic tubes all inside there. It's one of the features of this semi-one design America's Cup, 35th America's Cup, that all those controls are actually designed, put in, influenced completely by the teams. The wing itself is one design, but how you maneuver the camber, the front and back units, and the twist up throughout the actual wing itself is totally done by engineers and designers within your own team.
So that's the British boat in disarray currently. Let's speak with Peter Burling, the helmsman of Emirates Team New Zealand. Peter, initially your reactions. I mean, you've got one win on the board, which I guess is the most important thing from your perspective, but dramatic events out there.
Yeah, well, you know, we're really happy with how we prepared this morning, and we had a really good pre-start there to lead at Mark 1, and you know that's what we're trying to do, is just make our life nice and easy, and you know it was so well downwind, and it was obviously a bit of a shame for those guys, you know, had damage, because it was shaping up to be a good race.
Peter, take us through the start. Everything's been made out of Ben Ainsley being really statistically the best starter, the most aggressive starter maybe in the series to date, but you kind of got the start you were looking for, up high, gapped off up high, and a nice angle into Mark 1.
Yeah, well, it's something you obviously need to outweigh that risk of pushing too deep on the lay line as to, you know, what speed you're going to be able to get off the line at. And we've been done like that quite a few times, where we've just pushed a little bit too deep and not had good enough speed and been rolled. So it's really nice to get one back the other way.
Have you ever broken a major component inside your wing?
Yeah, we have in training, but it's something that is incredibly hard to fix, and you know, hopefully they get it back together for the next race, because it's
and then
you know, beautiful conditions out there.
The conditions look spectacular. What's a high speed you guys have seen, whether in training or here to date, in beautiful, perfect conditions like this?
Yeah, well, it's obviously not too windy today, around kind of 15 knots, but you know, down the reaches and fairways and stuff, yeah, you're close to 45. So yeah, it'll be interesting over the next few days if it's as windy as forecast, as to see what we can get out of these boats.
And Peter, give us an idea, perhaps those people who are watching who don't follow sailing on a regular basis, just give us a clue as to how much more difficult it is to keep your boat in one piece, dare I say it, when the winds are at the kind of speeds that we're seeing today.
Yeah, well, just the loads go through the roof when you get to a strong breeze, and you know, it's something that these boats are built to go from 6 knots, which you're kind of seeing us foiling around in yesterday, to 20, 25. So, no, it's something that, you know, you definitely have to change your mindset a little bit and, you know, prepare to race and breeze. And no, it's kind of a completely different sport, but everyone's practiced it, everyone's ready for it, and we're really excited about the days to come.
But it's not really a boat per se that you can back off and sail gingerly, is it? You just got to throw a brick on the pedal and send it, right? There's really nothing you can do to nurse it around the race course.
Oh, there's a fair bit you can do to try and preserve the gear, and definitely when we noticed those guys stop, we you know, definitely made sure we were trying to look after the gear and make sure we don't have any issues. And it's something that, you know, all these boats are built right on the edge, and, you know, today's a beautiful day for sailing, but, yeah, 20 knots is another story, and, you know, the structure and stuff gets really loaded.
Now, we see a bunch of guys on your team, the short team, crawling all over the boat, obviously doing a serious inspection on your own to make sure that you're not in the same situation that GBR is.
Yeah, well, for sure. You know, every time we stop, everyone takes the opportunity to go and check everything on the boat, and, you know, we're definitely a lot of contingencies in place if something does go wrong, but, you know, you don't want to have to use them, and, you know, the guys are doing a great job checking it over at the moment, and we're really looking forward to a race pretty soon.
Peter, many thanks for your time, appreciate it, and you'll be back on the water shortly. With any luck, the Brits will be out there too. Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
So the British have all hands to the pumps currently with wing trouble, and it is to the wing that we're going to concentrate now, because every now and then in the America's Cup someone develops an innovation that changes the face of the sport forever. 7 years ago, Jimmy Spithill and BMW Oracle Racing did just that when they arrived in Valencia for the 33rd America's Cup without a mainsail on their boat. Instead, they had a wing, sharing more in common with aviation really than sailing. It was a game changer. Let's take a look behind the scenes at Oracle Team USA to find out a little more.
Some people might think that the wind just pushes the boat along, but in fact, it's a bit more complicated than that. You know, the way lift works on an airfoil is the flow is going around both sides of the wing, and you've got a lower pressure on one side, and you've got a higher pressure on the other side. The combination of those two gives lift to the wing. We have a two-element wing. It has hinge points vertically, which allow it to change what we call camber, so we can change the lift distribution over the wing. The control system on the inside is a lot of complex lines connecting to different mechanisms, and multiple hydraulics and multiple controls. It's fairly complex.
The team's gone for a different direction in wing control systems. The geometry, the overall shape of the wings are all the same, one design. We've gone for a different system to other teams, so everyone can adjust their wing in different ways. Different wing conditions require different shapes. We can adjust the twist of the wing. The more you twist, the more you depower and you provide a faster shape. The more you take the twist out, it provides a more powerful. You're looking for power. We can change every camber arm, we call it, every portion of the wing. Here is a camber arm here, and we can adjust the shape of that. We can flatten that out, or we can make it deeper for a more powerful shape. These wings are our horsepower. They're how we get all our thrust around the course. So these are extremely important to get the maximum amount of power and go as fast as we can.
It has always been about pushing the limits. And so the wing and the foils is the next evolution, you know, and you look at it now, and it's taken an incredible step forward. It's been one of those gigantic leaps. Wing technology hasn't changed a lot since the 1920s, probably, you know. But to get wings to function on a racing boat like this certainly has had a major impact in the performance of the boats. It's an interesting time. I wish I was a young kid getting into this now, because it's an exciting period in the evolution of sailing.
So here's the great sound in Bermuda. It looks like a peaceful scene, but I can assure you it is anything but peaceful on board Land Rover BAR right now, having to retire from their opening Challenger playoff semi-final against the New Zealanders in leg 3 of 7. Let's have a word with Sir Ben Ainsley the helmsman, of course, on board. Ben, first of all, commiserations. Tell us how serious this is and how quickly you might or might not be able to fix it, because you've got, what, 40 minutes or so to do it?
It's pretty serious, yeah. We haven't had a failure like this before in our wing. Ultimately, we're going to have to switch wings. Whether or not we can get ourselves back out for the second race is, I'd say, it's highly unlikely right now. So, given we're in the playoffs against Team New Zealand, first 2 races, it's obviously not what any of us want, but you know, we're just going to have to deal with it. And we've got a great team here. We'll do everything we can to get back out for the next race.
So Ben, the plan is right now you got to somehow get back into the dock quick, get the boat out of the water, get the wing out of the boat, get your spare wing back in, and get back out to the race course. Is that a fair way to put it?
You nailed it, Ken.
Oh goodness, we're very sorry. That's this is no fun for any sailor in the world, and especially when you guys have put in the amount of time that you put into to get to this position.
Yeah, it's a tough one for the team, but you know, that's the challenge. It's a technical sport. Sometimes you get failures like this. We're just going to have to take it on the chin and deal with it and make the best of it what we can.
How did you know? Was there a bang? Was there? What was the first sign?
Yeah, coming around that leeward mark, we just got ourselves on the wind, and there was a big, you know, crunching sound coming out of the wing. And in those situations, it's all too tempting to just keep ploughing on and ignore it. But it was a pretty loud bang. We knew something fundamental was wrong. And thankfully we did stop, because otherwise I think we'd have about 3 or 4 bits of wing hanging around our ears right now. So it's the right call, and we just got to work this issue out the best we can.
Well, I know that perhaps the reasons behind it, Ben, are only just coming to light now, maybe, but do you have a notion as to why this happened? Was it just because the wind speed's that much stronger today? Was it putting extra pressure in places that perhaps they weren't ready for?
No, I mean, it's obviously strong winds, but we've trained in much stronger winds than this, and the boat, the wing, the components are designed for these conditions. Like I said, we've never had a failure like this before, so it's a real strange one for us. We'll obviously review it later and through this evening and try and work out exactly what's gone wrong, but for now, we're just focused on trying to get ourselves back out for the next race.
And is it a ginger enough situation right now that you can't really bear off and even bear off at all to go down the channel? Do you have to actually back the boat all the way into your base?
Yeah, that's right, exactly. We can't load the wing up at all. So we, as you can see, we've got the pusher and the chase boat. We're just trying to back ourselves in, and yeah, it's a tough situation to be in for us right now.
A crunching sound is typically the sign of carbon fiber. Is it fair to say this is a carbon fiber piece?
Yeah, it's carbon fiber related for sure. It's, you know, there's obviously a very complex control system within the wing, and we've got some issues in there.
Okay, Ben, listen, all the best. We wish you well for a speedy recovery. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, guys.
Sorry about that, Ben.
So, Land Rover BAR, the British in all kinds of bother. This is how the race started.
Yeah, Ainsley pushed, and I think Burling did a really nice job of getting that gap. And what that gap allows you to do is have a better angle to Mark 1, and that was the boat speed difference. That better angle gave him boat speed difference and led round Mark 1 through gate 2, and then, as Ben said, sounded like a crunching sound, and all of a sudden you saw those guys, bows hit the water, everybody's staring at the wing. Listen, I've been in this situation far too many times in my life. Any competitive sailor has, and this is the worst feeling on the planet. There's nothing you can do in that crunching sound. They did exactly the right thing, first of all. Just like what he said, your temptation is to put the hammer down and just say, the heck with it, we're going to keep going and see what happens. But these boats are so intricate that it could turn into disaster in no time. And stopping was the right call for sure.
So their confirmation of the win that's been attributed to the New Zealanders after a disqualification for Great Britain. Leg 3 of 7, a major setback. Their America's Cup, well, it hangs in the balance right here, right now. It is all hanging on the men and women on shore who will do their level best to get them back out on the water. Kiwis 1 up in their semi-final contest. Later on, of course, we will be seeing Sweden against Japan, and like all the teams at this stage, Nathan Ashridge's Sweden and Dean Barker's Japanese have faced off twice already in the round robins. Let's take a quick look back at what happened the last two these two met. Dean Barker's SoftBank Team Japan against Nathan Outridge's Artemis Racing.
These two teams are as solid as any here. Off they go.
The Japanese firing through the blocks ahead of the Swedes. Straight up on the foils, both of them. There is very little separating these two right now. Japanese turning in close proximity. These two bearing down on each other.
Wow, that just happened really fast. Artemis comes ripping in from behind, but Dean Barker did the right thing. He avoided the collision and just rolled the boat into attack.
That is not for the faint-hearted. Hand-to-hand combat indeed, and at one moment it looked very much as if they might get involved in actual combat, but it is Sweden who crossed the line first. Dean Barker, disappointment in their first outing on the Great Sound in Bermuda. Race number 11 of the second round robin stage of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup qualifiers.
Dean Barker's got himself in a tough spot.
Both teams have been up on the foils for the entirety of the race so far.
Really close race.
The Swedes will really offer a threat from here on in.
They are to be feared when the breeze is up. There is no question about that.
And frustration is probably the word for Dean Barker and SoftBank Team Japan. So they're a little taster of things to come as we look ahead to race number 2 of the day. It is Sweden with Nathan Outridge at the helm against Japan with Dean Barker in charge. We're going to continue, of course, to keep you right up to date with everything going on with the British. The Swedes have been gathering good momentum recently. 3 wins on the spin. France have seen off comfortably a couple of days ago. Prior to that, the Americans and Japanese beaten on Friday. They're the only team to have beaten the USA. Helmsman Nathan Outridge is going pretty hard in these conditions.
You know, we're going to be pushing hard, and the conditions are perfect for that. You know, I think it's going to be about having some nice clean starts and just sort of seeing how the races evolve and develop. But I think if we just, you know, sail like we have sailed the last few days, we're going to be in good shape.
Listen, it's very simple. Artemis has been improving by the day. They suffered a lot of inconsistency through the America's Cup World Series, and at the beginning of the round robin series. But here we are in exactly the breeze that they love. They are absolutely thought to be one of the fastest, if not the fastest boat in the breeze. And we're going to see if they can keep that boat in one piece around the race course, unlike Great Britain.
Well, the Japanese have been struggling a little bit. Just 3 victories since racing began on the Great Sound. They haven't won a race since Thursday when they overcame the French with plenty to spare. But helmsman Dean Barker insists they're not far away from finding their best.
We're looking forward to getting out there today. It's great breeze. You know, I think we've been sailing really well. The 2 races we've had with Artemis in the qualifiers, we had the lead in one and managed to give that away with a silly mistake. And then second one, we had a bad start and just kept coming at them. So we've got a lot of confidence that the boat's fast, we're sailing well, and if we can put it all together, then we know we can beat them.
Well, SoftBank Team Japan is technically an upstart team, but with a very nice feature: access to the Oracle Team USA design program since its inception. Derek Sayward and Jeremy Lomas came to this team along with their longtime teammate Dean Barker to build a new team with high hopes of immediate success. Chris Draper doubles as wing trimmer and tactician and will certainly have his hands full today.
So these are 2 teams that have been out here in Bermuda for a long time. The Swedes have enjoyed the better of their meetings with the Japanese since the event began. They won both their matchups in qualifying. Nathan Outridge seems to put their fluctuations in performance behind them. It's hard to say at this stage that Dean Barker has done the same. The Swedes with port entry this time as they look to outmaneuver the Japanese crew. Traditionally, Dean Barker, a strong starter, and they will all be very wary having seen what's happened to Sir Ben Ainsley out there in the opening race of the day.
We got the goggles back on Outridge. We got boats ripping in at 38 knots coming into the start box. Full on, you know, and what you said, Ali, is exactly true. During the pre-start, during the milling about, for sure, the breakdown issue is on the top of everybody's mind, but it's like any sport. As soon as somebody blows the whistle, it's out of your head. It's just put the pedal down and send it and see what happens.
And as you mentioned, and we've heard the skippers mention so many times as well, the notion of caution in these boats, it doesn't really mesh.
No, there's no notion of caution. Look at these guys ripping around and some of the comments off the boat. Caution is not a word that's used very often, but it was interesting that Peter Burling said they do have some techniques that they can actually back the boat off a little bit and, what, in his words, preserve it if they need to do it.
Setting up straight away. Standing by.
Drama then in the opening race of the day here in Bermuda, but now the first semi-final of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup Challengers between Sweden and Japan. Outeridge against Barker, and the chase is on in the pre-start. This is when the two boats try and manipulate each other before the start line itself.
Massive gap between the two boats. Look at that. Hugh, we haven't seen that big a gap between two boats in a long time. But here comes Outeridge. He's going to just come screaming down and try to loop around the outside behind Team Japan. Try to loop around the outside. If he doesn't think he can get there, he will very quickly go head to wind again or try to gap off to the weather side of Team Japan. There's that gapping maneuver. Now it's too late. Now it's going to be time and distance. Who's going to get to that starting line first? Let's see if he can use a better angle coming from the weather side if you're Nathan Outeridge.
Timing is everything, needless to say. And looks like these two are going to cross at similar moments. And the Japanese are away. The Swedes, though, just going a little bit quicker off the bat.
That better angle coming down from the top of the starting line. But I tell you what, Japan is hanging in there. This is very, very tight going into Mark 1.
Proper drag race on this opening reach.
Can they get there before that wing wash disturbs their air? If they can round to the inside of this mark before Artemis, if they can keep an overlap, oh, they put the bows down at exactly the wrong time, and all of a sudden Artemis slingshots around the bow.
So, yet again, we're talking about those fine margins again, aren't we? Didn't plunge into the water for long, but long enough for the Swedes to take advantage, and we know how quick they can be. We've seen them on countless occasions out here on the Great Sound, really putting the hammer down.
You see Outeridge not only driving, but holding on to the main sheet going into that maneuver. It's not like he doesn't have anything to do.
Big header here at the moment.
Dean Barker taking the Japanese right up to the boundary edge.
Puffy, shifty, say big header. That's an advantage to Barker. If somehow they can sail into a header on the new side, their header on starboard tack, let's see if they can get the breeze back as a header on port tack as well.
Big field. What's going on with the coming on now?
Only 3 wins from their 10 in the qualifying stage, the Japanese. They've been underperforming by the standards that they've set themselves.
I think he's actually well across. Got in place now. No problem with him.
The Japanese coming in, likely going to be able to get through the gate in 1. Artemis, this is going to create a split again. Very close race.
Up here in 3.
Just enough of an angle for the Swedes to squeak round a relatively tight rounding of the gate, and the Japanese heading off in the other direction.
Catching the speed there, 20 seconds. 18. Setting up.
So it was around about this time in race 1 that the Brits broke down. Happily for these two, no such troubles as yet.
This is a 1 mistake lead right now. You know, one little splashdown after a tack, and then the pass happens immediately. So for both of these boats, just crucial moments to keep this thing up on the foils and just ripping. starboard tack advantage to SoftBank Team Japan if they are that close. I think he's going to get across on Artemis. Should be by a couple lengths, but it's close.
It's looking tighter and tighter.
They bail. They bail out, and the port tack boat goes behind, so we got a nice pass already from Dean Barker, and they're going quick.
We've seen them build these leads in so many of the races in the event so far, the Japanese. It's been clinging on to them that's been the problem. Great sight, isn't it?
30 knots upwind for all sailors back home. Just think about that for a minute. So true wind direction coming off of the boats right now. Showing a little more right-hand angle on the starboard side of the course, but that right-hand angle probably is what got SoftBank Team Japan across in the first place. Let's see if the ship goes back the other way. Remember, these puffs come down on different angles and directions down the race course. They are as big an effect as small amounts of boat speed, maybe bigger effect with boats that are going this even in speed.
So let's bring in Joey Newton, part of the American team here, of course. He's out on the water for us this afternoon. Joey, you know these two crews well. The Japanese have been your design partners. It's tight out there, isn't it? All the time. Where's your money?
Well, I've got to say the Japanese, upwind especially, are looking really, really good. They took the unfavoured mark at the bottom there with one jibe. So I thought they were going to fall a little further behind, but since that moment they've just kept munching into the Artemis lead, and now they're in front and they're showing them a pretty clean pair of heels as we speak now.
This is something that we've seen out of Artemis very often, is that upwind pace, but 30 knots. A constant 30 knots out of SoftBank Team Japan is a big number. Wind shifts haven't changed much, right? Just shy of that 300 degrees. We're showing you wind shifts more because it has become such an important feature out on Great Sound with the breeze, very flat water, and the breeze coming over these land masses that we see at the top of our screen.
3, 2, 1, get aboard. All right. Light pressure above. Speed now.
Going back to Joey Newton on the water. Joey, how much do you guys watch this, knowing that you have kind of a similar design setup on Oracle Team USA? Is this are you using this as a bit of an experiment for your own boat right now?
Yeah, of course. We're watching all the teams out here, but the stuff that the Japanese are doing against Artemis especially, we're watching really closely because it's a pretty good measure of our own boat speed, watching how these guys are going.
33 knots upwind. Now, they've overstood slightly, so they're starting to bear off a little bit, but...
Well, there is a certain point at which you need to put the brakes on just a little bit to head round a bend.
I'm not so sure these guys have that part of their DNA.
Just tearing across the water. SoftBank Team Japan going really nicely, and that pass has set them up so well.
What a gap. I mean, they were behind by 4 or 5 seconds at that bottom mark, kept it close on the run. But man, oh man, they just pasted Artemis Racing on that beat, and it's just something in a breeze. We're not used to seeing Artemis Racing kind of suffer that sort of pasting.
Well, the Swedes look like they might take off at any moment.
Calm, cool 40 knots amongst friends.
Quite a gap opening up between the pair of them, despite the boat speed of the Swedes under Nathan Outridge.
I don't think they're going to be able to just jibe once and come in towards this mark, so we got a couple more maneuvers to go. Smoothness and stability, certainly on a 15-knot breeze, is much, much easier than lighter winds.
Compare and contrast the crazy speeds that these boats are going at and the calm composure of Nathan Outridge at the helm.
We saw in that interview leading up to this race, Outridge saying he's got two guys on grinders looking back at him, looking at his face. Whether I remember going offshore in ocean races and things, and if anybody sees any fear in the skipper's eyes, it spreads like wildfire through the boat. So he has to show that composure. Winning a race, losing a race, going way too fast, or even going way too slow.
Maybe we've found another reason for the goggles.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah, everybody's inscrutable behind a pair of goggles.
I don't know what that word means, but
I'll get the dictionary for you.
Okay,
don't worry.
Thank you.
It means he can't be read.
We have our wind direction indicator up there, a slight right-hand shift. The course is set up to 155 degrees. Right now, the breeze is blowing in at 165 degrees, which means both of these boats are on the correct jibe into the mark for a wind shift.
All right. Stop it. You're aboard, Dad. Got to get the camber out there.
Smooth manoeuvring from the Japanese and turning upwind for one more leg here. Upwind where they had great success on the previous occasion. The Swedes choosing to split the course.
Tough maneuver, that tough last jibe. Lots of hydraulic oil being pumped through the system right now.
Hey, camber now.
And that is what the grinders are up to. That is fundamentally what they're doing. If you haven't seen too much of this kind of sailing before, this frenzied activity from the grinders, pumping that hydraulic fluid around all the systems so that the wing can be trimmed, so that the various different parts of the boat can be manipulated.
Very good shift.
A little bit of a loss of momentum there from Artemis Racing, the Swedes. Seem to have been finding a bit of form recently, Artemis Racing, but here being tested to the full by Dean Barker and SoftBank Team Japan.
3, 2, 1, get board. All right. Yeah. Pushing at me, Dino. Yeah, pushing at you.
Coming back to action here, the Japanese have clearly gained a little bit more on this leg, and that's after possibly sailing out of phase to the wind. That our indicator is still showing a right-hand shift, and they came from the left and actually gained from the left. That's a telltale sign that a boat is going really fast.
Pretty low on oil here. Yeah, I've got enough oil. Carrying on a bit. 35 seconds of boundary building. Boundary tack. Copy. 25 to boundaries.
You heard them say pretty low on oil. This is an interesting feature of this modern-day America's Cup. You wonder if they weren't low on oil, if they would have tacked exactly when because this is a risk when the boats split apart like this. Artemis is splitting apart looking for a better wind shift on the right-hand side of the race course, but I wonder if the fact that they talked about, they were low on oil, they couldn't tack with them right away, and it creates this split again.
And is the fact that the wind is up today here in Bermuda, Ken, does that change things for the grinders? Does it change the amount of energy that they are trying to produce? Do they have to produce more juice on a day like today?
Well, I guess inherently you would think it makes sense. But even on light air days, you're constantly changing the twist and the camber of the wing, changing the rake and the angles of the dagger boards. So I'd say they probably say it was a little more physical today, but it's not taking away the fact that it's not physical in light air, that's for sure.
Well, those are healthy percentages. Japanese not far shy of the magic mark. The magic mark that was touched, of course, by the Kiwis a couple of days ago.
25 with us. 20, Setting up.
They're constantly going a couple knots faster than Artemis. And again, this is not a mode that we have seen
3, 2, 1, go
with
forward.
most boats racing against Artemis. Artemis has always been very quick upwind, and this is very impressive right now from SoftBank Team Japan.
So we're learning right now as we see the Japanese stretch out some 200+ meters away from Artemis Racing. We are learning that Land Rover BAR and the British crew are out of racing for the rest of today. They will forfeit that second Challenger playoff semi-final against the New Zealanders. So with the best of 9 being the decisive factor here. So first team to 5 wins, the Kiwis will go 2 up.
Setting up, boys.
And I believe, not to take away from this race, we're saying the Kiwis will have to start the race, and then the Brits will be black flagged. So I believe the Kiwis actually still have to physically start the race, prove that they can start the race, and then whether it's the umpires or the regatta director will actually black flag.
So providing they don't have any calamities, that will be the scenario for Emirates Team New Zealand. They will be 2-0 up in a best of 9 series over the British. Everybody will be sweating on the repair work on shore currently, but in the meantime, Japanese building up a very tasty lead in this contest, and they are almost home, you would suggest at this point. It's going to take an error or 2 from this kind of situation, Ken, isn't it?
That is for sure, especially after you round that weather mark. You go from 30 to 38 knots. You inherently just kind of pull away. That you gain when you turn onto these runs, onto these faster legs. You have to make a pretty big error right now. And again, that breakdown factor, something that we've talked about a lot for the last week. We saw it come to fruition today, of course, unfortunately for Land Rover BAR, and you just never know these carbon fiber fragile boats. If they're too strong, they're too heavy, and you're slow. If they're too weak, they break, and you can't race. It's really, you got to find that perfect balance.
Are you on our line? Driving on our line. No SUV, no focus on us, yeah,
Well, they haven't been at their best, the Japanese here in Bermuda, but they will be well pleased. Things seem to be coming to fruition at plumb the right moment. Frankly, the qualifiers are consigned to history at this stage. If you can bring out your A game in the knockout stages, as we are in right now, that is all that matters.
It's a tricky little lap. We haven't seen a final leg like the one we're going to see. It's literally about 250 meters long, and it's a quick little angle change right into the finish. The finish line is literally, you know, a solid 9-iron right out in front of our booth here, Ali. It's going to be a quick maneuver. You know, I'm not saying it's setting up for disaster, but it's certainly not something that the sailors are used to. This type of very, very fast, quick jibe that they're going to have to do to get across the finish line.
A little bit more instability from the Swedish team.
Go, boys. Come on,
not helping their cause, but this race is run, I think, from their perspective at this stage. Maybe these are the sort of moments when they recognise that they have too much ground to make up, when they perhaps start to nurse the boat a little bit.
Yeah, if there's another boat on the race course, that means it's a blood sport. There's no way anybody's nursing anything at this stage. You know, this is going to be. I believe this is the second time Outeridge has worn those goggles. The first time he wore them was that infamous race against the Kiwis, where they might have gotten a foul called on them that they didn't actually do. Are you a superstitious guy, Ali?
Well, I think I might be. If I was Nathan Outeridge, I might be looking for a new pair of goggles, or perhaps a different option.
Here's that quick jibe into the finish. They just jibe straight through the gate, blasting right at us here in the booth, and it's going to be a clear win for SoftBank Team.
A short, punchy finish for the Japanese as they tear across the finish line, and they take a 1-0 advantage over Sweden in their Challenger semi-final. And having been fishing around for their best form out here on the Great Sound, it looks like, and it's hard to read too much into just one race, but it might appear as if they are beginning to find their feet. Disappointment then for Artemis Racing and Nathan Outridge. One key pass, and then Dean Barker made sure that they couldn't be reeled in. So, the race summary, leg by leg.
Yeah, one pass and a stretch. I mean, just a solid, really good upwind leg. We'll have to ask Dean Barker whether he's attributing that to wind shifts in this kind of puffy, shifty condition, or boat speed, or most likely he's going to say a combination of the two. But really solid comeback from Japan, and hey, you know what? They held the lead, they got a lead, they held it, and it's something that they've been frustrated with in the past. We know that for a fact.
So the results so far, absolute mayhem in the British ranks after disqualification in the opening race. We know that they will not get onto the water for their second race of the day, and the Japanese registering an important victory over the Swedes, their first here in Bermuda. That will be cause for celebration in their ranks. And there we see the best of 9 in these Challenger playoff semi-finals. So 5 is the magic number, 5 race wins. So let's have a little bit of a look at the race in detail.
Coming into Mark 1, this is the drag race for the second race in a row. The boat starting gapped off at the right-hand end of the line, had a little better angle to get down over the bow of the boat to leeward. I think Japan just popped off of their foils. The wing wash is not affecting them. And it went from almost being able to control the situation to not in a very short period of time. It's that one little punch into the water that caused them to stop, and you just see the other boat just shoot out a boat length, and that's all it takes to get around Mark 1 in first. And typically that's a very strong position. We'll have to ask Dean exactly what happened there, but I'm sure they'll be a little frustrated with that because it went from almost a perfect spot to a bad spot in a heartbeat.
So a terrific win for SoftBank Team Japan, a terrific start to the semi-finals for Dean Barker, who we can speak to now. Dean, congratulations. How important was it to get off on the right foot, so to speak, in this semi-final?
Well, we're up against a very strong team in Artemis, and yeah, they've proven they've been pretty strong in these conditions. So for us to come out and put together a really solid race, we know it's been there. We just sort of for various reasons, just haven't been able to quite put it together. But we sort of were holding in there pretty well in that first reach. Just had one little stuff which let them around us, but the guys just did a fantastic job around the course. So yeah, to get back into the race, and yeah, I think once we got in front, we were able to stretch away pretty well.
So Dean, let's go back to that first reach. We've watched it a bunch of times. I mean, you're very close to being in control at that spot. Still like a slight overlap possibly, and all of a sudden the boat just splashed down, just dug in. Is there a reason? Do you know exactly why that happened?
Yeah, it's pretty much on me really, but it's you try not to foil too high because the boat will take off sideways. So you're trying to foil as low as you can without obviously sticking the bows in, and just got a little bit too low, and then as a result, we touch down, and you just see how dramatic the speed is when it washes off.
It is incredible. So then let's go to the first upwind leg. Speed or smarts? I mean, you guys look like you were ripping. First of all, your speeds were consistently a little bit higher than the Swedes, but it also seems pretty shifty out there in the race course. So what do you equate it to, speed versus smarts?
Well, Lemmy and Chris did a great job with sort of getting nicely in phase with the upwind, and so I think we benefited from being on the right side of some good shifts. The boat's going well, and it has been the whole regatta. It's just you've got to be able to sail smart in these conditions, and you get a little bit out of phase, and it's hard to actually turn things back around. So yeah, it's definitely tough conditions right now.
And Dean, what about your reaction to the calamity that has befallen the British crew in the opening race. I mean, was that something that was on your mind at all at the start of your own race when you see another crew go down like that?
Not really, no. You've got to have a lot of trust in your shore guys, the way they've prepared the boat and made sure it's ready to go racing. And yeah, obviously these boats are on the edge and you have to respect them a lot, but you certainly can't back off for a second. You just got to trust that everything is 100% ready to go all the time. And when you get a chance to back off a little bit, well, yeah, you just got to be careful when you do it.
Dean, thanks for your time. Congratulations on your win.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Victory then for SoftBank Team Japan in their first contest against the Swedes, and dissect that, if you will, Ken.
Well, average boat speeds, and what those folks are doing as they head up to St. George's for another stop on the other side of the island.
So a slight contrast in those who are enjoying their day on the tall ships and those who are beavering away to try to sort out this issue on board Land Rover BAR. Their wing with big trouble. The camber arm in the wing, which needs fixing, and they've already stated that they will play no further part in today's proceedings. They will hope to get back on the water tomorrow. I mean, let's not forget they've already suffered a fair degree of damage in the round robin stage when they clattered their way into the Japanese boat, and there was a fairly hefty hole in the hull. So the shore team have had to work extremely hard during the competition so far. Dean Burling and Emirates Team New Zealand, though, will be delighted that they are 1 up. They are now surely to go 2 up in this series.
The best news that we heard from Ainsley is they have a spare wing, not just spare parts, but a spare wing. So they should be fine for sailing tomorrow.
So, race number 3 of the day, which currently will only feature 1 boat. And this is just a procedure that needs to be gone through to start the race. The Kiwis have to at least do that much to register their victory. Seems like a curious protocol, Ken, but one that everybody signs up to early on in the piece.
That's exactly correct. And all these rules are signed off on by everybody. They're not going to do anything crazy. They're just going to kind of dog it into this starting box and have a little run at it. Maybe try to learn something. They might be able to tick a few boxes here on their own, just sailing around on their own. But at the same time, let's face it, the priority is to get the win. Imagine the disaster if they're just kind of hot-shotting around a little bit in the pre-start and broke something themselves and couldn't even start the race. So their only priority right now is get over that starting line on the correct side, no harm, no foul, and very likely Chief Umpire Richard Slater then black flags Britain and gives the race to the Kiwis.
Yep, standing by, boys. This way.
So this is perhaps just about the only time that you might see any of the crews out here quietly nursing their way around the course, although it really doesn't look like that, does it? As training runs go.
If that's quietly nursing, I'd hate to see what aggressively going for it is.
But it is a free shot, effectively, for Emirates Team New Zealand. A strange old dynamic, really, but one that needs doing if they're to make sure of their 2-0 advantage.
They'll try their time and distance from a fair distance, I would imagine. Don't be over, don't break anything, start the race. Very likely black flag. The Brits, who are still in at the dock with a broken wing, a piece to their wing, and don't be over early, Peter, when you're by yourself.
So they're hammering their way forwards and crossing the start line safely enough.
Be interesting to see if they do continue on the race. I mean, essentially, they got the course to themselves right now.
Is that up to them?
Here we go.
Black flag, race awarded to NZL.
So that was Richard Slater telling the Kiwis that the Brits have been black flagged and the race has been awarded to them by default.
And there's their opposition.
Not where you want to be when the start of your race goes. I bet these guys go around the track. They were just going 44 knots right there. I don't know if you saw that.
Because they can.
Really taking your foot off the accelerator.
Well, is there an element of nose rubbing at this point?
No, not even close. I think they probably had a little meeting there in between races, knowing these guys weren't going to get back out to the start. And what are we trying to accomplish on the racetrack by ourselves? Are there some tests we want to do? Maybe they put a couple new pieces on the boat. You never know. But it seems to me that they're still hammered down trying to learn something going around the racetrack.
Let's go full pace like he's above us here, and we'll drive back for a right turn.
Remember, the Kiwis practice by themselves in Auckland for a number of months, so they're kind of used to doing this. So you heard Peter Burley just say, let's just practice like he's right above us here right now. We'll do one more jibing inning. So they're not backing off the pedal at all, and they're going to use this as a nice little training session.
There you see their unique setup with the side claws pedaling away for all they're worth. With the Burling in control at the back, and this distribution of responsibilities, one that's working really well for them out here, with Glenn Ashby trimming the whim and Burling in control at the helm. Blair Tuke, the tactician, and it just means that spread that no one person can is overloaded.
Yeah, well, I think Blair Tuke is really functioning the dagger boards far more. He's taking that responsibility away from Peter Burling far more than a lot of the other skippers. We've looked at the hand grips on the steering wheels. We just have buttons on these steering wheels right here, and those are definitely, he has some control to some features of the dagger board, but for the most part, Blair Tuke, who's the aftmost peddler, or as he's running across the boat, it's hard to pick out right now, he actually controls those dagger boards quite a bit more, I think, than Peter Burling does. Remember, they're never going to tell us all the secrets, the tricks of the trade.
A sorry sight for British sailing fans, for British sporting fans. So Ben Ainsley firmly on the back foot already. Going to have to come from 2-0 down to somehow find a way past the Kiwis, who are just busy tuning up.
Thumbs up if you copy that, Joe.
It was going to be a ferociously difficult challenge for the Brits regardless, Ken, but now it really is going to take something special.
Interesting. Hearing more communication out of Burling in a practice race than we do during a normal race.
So the manoeuvres slick and crisp as ever from the Kiwis. And we'll let them wend their way down the race course as they...
Very cool views, though. Really seeing how quickly those cyclists can get onto their seats and clip in and get that thing rolling. Amazing stuff.
So off they go. A training run that will no doubt afford them a little bit of space to breathe. And in the meantime, we're going to have another look at the first race of the day, that dramatic first race of the day in its entirety, such as it was. New Zealand against Great Britain in their first Challenger playoff semi-final. These pre-starts, Kenny, what's going on out there now?
Well, this one already, we've seen kind of that leading back position that very often is held by the person coming in for the port tack entry, which was Emirates Team New Zealand. We've seen that flip-flop twice. They've actually kind of cut each other off twice now. Emirates Team New Zealand is pushing very low in the box. They're still early for the line, and they know it. Here comes Ben Ainslie to try to attempt that hooking maneuver. He's been very aggressive down on this lay line, this yellow line on the side of the screen. They can't really go much further beyond that. Really early still for Emirates Team New Zealand. Ainslie's trying to set him up. Which side is he going to try to pass him on?
For the moment, Peter Burling having none of it, and of course all these maneuvers happening at high speed as we approach the start time. It's going to be a delicate one for the Kiwis, just across on point when it comes to the start. Emirates Team New Zealand, but Land Rover BAR and Sir Ben Ainslie not far behind. A wonderful, fascinating duel in the early exchanges.
Crucial and aggressive. Peter Burling told us in that pre-race interview that he thought it was going to be aggressive. Man, he doesn't look too flustered, though, does he? They got a little bit of a gap off to windward, up high on the starting line. That gave him a better angle and a better boat speed into mark number 1.
They are flying 44 knots. That's as quick as we've seen from anybody here in Bermuda.
Ali, Great Britain cannot make mistakes against this team. We just saw a little bit of a press, a bows kind of slamming into the water in a bit of an unforced error coming into that mark. They just can't make mistakes. They're not going to be able to make mistakes. They're going to have to sail perfect races here because the Kiwis have shown to be very solid all the way around the race course.
An early jibe from the British crew. Kiwis setting the pace at the moment. Not a huge amount in it. Just look at these speeds that we're seeing. There's going to be some high-octane stuff this afternoon, as Ben Ainslie predicted.
You're Ben Ainslie right now. You're keeping it close. Come on, boat speed. They've been working on appendages. Everybody's working on appendages, but for sure they've been working on appendages in order to try to get better control, better lift, better stability. They need those things to be working because, again, the Kiwis just don't make many big mistakes.
My neck.
The Kiwis won both of their contests in the qualifying stage. Round robin won by almost a minute and a half. The second time that they met, of course, Sir Ben Ainslie and Great Britain had to retire. Flying into gate 2.
Yeah, they got it close and they're going to get a split, an easy split. Not having to do that Celia maneuver, that last-minute jibe right at the gate. So Ben Ainslie got kind of that split he was looking for as the boat behind. But a slam by Ainslie. We're looking out on the race course right now. They just pressed their bows back in again.
Small errors will cost them.
Something's wrong on board Land Rover BAR right now. They've stopped. They've stopped racing. The guys are all looking around. Something's wrong on board the boat.
So this could be a very dramatic moment for Land Rover BAR. We know that there is a much greater risk of trouble in these high winds, of course.
You get it on?
It's not ruin the wing. I've got 0 on the camber ram. The wing's still got camber in it, so there's nothing broken.
Well, they're stopping altogether by the looks of things.
Yeah. I think we're...
I heard something's broken inside the wing.
I don't want to, you know, we're not going to win this race from here, so... Okay, I think the smart thing is to...
Well, the only thing is if we can trick around and they have one.
Yeah.
Mate, I'm on 0.
Come on, boys, tell us what's wrong.
Yeah, what is the decision here? I mean,
they're looking around.
Limiting rounds to drop.
Well, it's looking very much as if they're going to be calling it quits. How damaging to their prospects.
Fooling around with the wing down on the bottom side of the boat. Those guys are not normally.
You've still got the issue.
Yeah, I mean, when he cambers, he's going to be able to go as far as he wants. So out of every tap, we're going to be on max camber.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, let's just we'll retire from this race. Race committee, Land Rover BAR.
Go ahead, Land Rover BR.
Yeah, we're going to have to retire from this race. Over.
Confirmation.
Thank you, Land Rover BR.
Confirmation from Sir Ben Ainsley
Okay.
that the
Get
British
the,
crew
chase
are
boats on.
retiring from their opening
I've got the green
Challenger
mark,
playoff semi-final against the Kiwis. Dramatic stuff out there on the Great Sound of Bermuda. The wing
camber arm in the wing
of their boat is causing all kinds of problems. Only the third leg of 7. Kiwis already beginning to stretch out at the time, but they've had to come to a grinding halt, and who knows how damaging that might be to their overall prospects for the next day or two, Kenny.
We heard, I believe we just heard somebody on board the boat say they've broken a camber arm inside the wing, which creates not the twist, but the general overall shape and depth to the wing, the front and back elements.
So this is when it happened.
It's broken. We got a problem? Something's broken, yeah. Camber ram's broken. Okay, slowing up. Ah!
You heard it right there, camber arm is broken.
It's broken. We got a problem? Something's broken, yeah. Camber ram's broken. Okay, slowing up.
The camber arm. So can he explain
I'm not sure
the significance?
Camber arm or camber ram. It could be a hydraulic ram or a...
Yeah, we need to get the pusher out here. Like ASAP, James.
We'll be able to go downwind. We won't be able to jump.
The camera arm's pushing up.
We're in quite a good spot if we back up from here.
Freddie Carr taking a good
James,
look
we'll start
inside
backing
there.
up from here, okay?
It's up against the...
Just, yeah. Keep his head to win, James, if you can. So you just had to back up the other way a bit.
Crisis time in the British camp.
Well, they got to get it fixed for the next race. That's the key right now. The Kiwis, I believe usually the protocol here, we'll find out in a minute, is that the Kiwis need to get through this gate, and then the officials will actually call the race off and give the race win to the Kiwis. They don't have to sail all the way around the course. It's called black flagging the race.
What a contrast between the two outfits here. Peter Burling in charge of Emirates Team New Zealand, having effectively been handed the race. The race has been black flagged, so the British disqualified from the opening contest of their Challenger semi-final.
Emirates Team New Zealand. We're just wondering whether we should continue on or whether we are now finished, considering it's due for the GBR.
This is the umpires. We have black flagged the GBR and awarded the race to Emirates Team New Zealand.
Nice, boys, we're done. Okay, thank you, guys. We'll stand by.
We're done, and so they are.
Let's just hope the Brits aren't done for the day. Certainly something that can likely be fixed overnight, but a camber arm is typically quite an intricate carbon fiber piece of kit that you just don't have one laying around, and typically has to be glued into the wing apparatus. A bunch of really good short team folks are going to be looking all over this to try to figure out, you know, there's contingency plans for everything, but if a major piece breaks, there's nothing you can do about that.
Well, their
Just let
worst
the valve go
fears
to the left, James, so that we go to
confirmed.
leeward of it.
Major issues to attend to
Valve to the
here,
left, James,
and
because we want the wind to push us off.
not much time to sort it out, given that we will see Sweden against Japan next up, and then the Brits due back on the water, starting out for race number 2 of their semi-final campaign. What a calamity.
Oh, shame, just a shame. It's certainly exactly, you look at all those intricate little units in there, there's hydraulic tubes all inside there. It's one of the features of this semi-one design America's Cup, 35th America's Cup, that all those controls are actually designed, put in, influenced completely by the teams. The wing itself is one design, but how you maneuver the camber, the front and back units, and the twist up throughout the actual wing itself is totally done by engineers and designers within your own team. So
that's the British boat in disarray currently. Let's speak with Peter Burling, the helmsman of Emirates Team New Zealand. Peter, initially your reactions. I mean, you've got one win on the board, which I guess is the most important thing from your perspective, but dramatic events out there.
Yeah, well, you know, we're really happy with how we prepared this morning, and we had a really good pre-start there to lead at Mark 1, and you know that's what we're trying to do, is just make our life nice and easy. And you know, we started well downwind, and it was obviously a bit of a shame that those guys, you know, had damage, because it was shaping up to be a good race.
Peter, take us through the start. Everything's been made out of Ben Ainsley being really statistically the best starter, the most aggressive starter maybe in the series to date, but you kind of got the start you were looking for, up high, gapped off up high, and a nice angle into Mark 1.
Yeah, well, it's something you obviously need to outweigh that risk of pushing too deep on the lay line as to, you know, what speed you're going to be able to get off the line at. Now we've been done like that quite a few times, where we've just pushed a little bit too deep and not had good enough speed and been rolled. So it's really nice to get one back the other way.
Have you ever broken a major component inside your wing?
Yeah, we have in training, but it's something that is incredibly hard to fix, and you know, hopefully they get it back together for the next race, because it's
and then this,
you know, beautiful conditions out there.
The conditions look spectacular. What's a high speed you guys have seen, whether in training or here to date, in beautiful, perfect conditions like this?
Yeah, well, it's obviously not too windy today, around kind of 15 knots, but you know, down the reaches and barrelways and stuff, yeah, you're close to 45. So yeah, it'll be interesting over the next few days if it's as windy as forecast, as to see what we can get out of these boats.
And Peter, give us an idea, perhaps those people who are watching who don't follow sailing on a regular basis, just give us a clue as to how much more difficult it is to keep your boat in one piece, dare I say it, when the winds are at the kind of speeds that we're seeing today.
Yeah, well, just the loads go through the roof when you get to a strong breeze, and you know, it's something that these boats are built to go from 6 knots, which you're kind of seeing us foiling around in yesterday, to 20, 25. So, no, it's something that, you know, you definitely have to change your mindset a little bit and, you know, prepare to race and breeze. And it's kind of a completely different sport, but everyone's practiced it, everyone's ready for it, and we're really excited about the days to come.
But it's not really a boat, per se, that you can back off and sail gingerly, is it? You just got to throw a brick on the pedal and send it, right? There's really nothing you can do to nurse it around the race course.
Oh, there's a fair bit you can do to try and preserve the gear, and definitely when we noticed those guys stop, we you know, definitely made sure we were trying to look after the gear and make sure we don't have any issues. And it's something that, you know, all these boats are built right on the edge, and you know, today's a beautiful day for sailing, but yeah, 20 knots is another story, and you know, the structure and stuff gets really loaded.
Now we see a bunch of guys on your team, the short team, crawling all over the boat, obviously doing a serious inspection on your own to make sure that you're not in the same situation that GBR is.
Yeah, well, for sure. You know, every time we stop, everyone takes the opportunity to go and check everything on the boat, and you know, we're definitely a lot of contingencies in place if something does go wrong. But you know, you don't want to have to use them, and you know, the guys are doing a great job checking it over at the moment, and we're really looking forward to a race pretty soon.
Peter, many thanks for your time, appreciate it, and you'll be back on the water shortly. With any luck, the Brits will be out there too. Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
Ben, first of all, commiserations. Tell us how serious this is and how quickly you might or might not be able to fix it, because you've got, what, 40 minutes or so to do it?
It's pretty serious, yeah. We haven't had a failure like this before in our wing. Ultimately, we're going to have to switch wings. Whether or not we can get ourselves back out for the second race is, I'd say it's highly unlikely right now. So, given we're in the playoffs against Team New Zealand, first two races, it's obviously not what any of us want, but you know, we're just going to have to deal with it. And we've got a great team here. We'll do everything we can to get back out for the next race.
So Ben, the plan is right now you got to somehow get back into the dock quick, get the boat out of the water, get the wing out of the boat, get your spare wing back in, and get back out to the race course. Is that a fair way to put it?
You nailed it, Ken.
Oh goodness, we're very sorry. That's this is no fun for any sailor in the world, and especially when you guys have put in the amount of time that you've put into to get to this position.
Yeah, it's a tough one for the team, but you know, that's the change. It's a technical sport. Sometimes you get failures like this. We're just going to have to take it on the chin and deal with it and make the best of it what we can.
How did you know? Was there a bang? Was there? What was the first sign?
Yeah, coming around that leeward mark, we just got ourselves on the wind, and there was a big, you know, crunching sound coming out of the wing. And in those situations, it's all too tempting to just keep ploughing on and ignore it. But it was a pretty loud bang. We knew something fundamental was wrong, and thankfully we did stop, because otherwise I think we'd have about 3 or 4 bits of wing hanging around our ears right now. So it's the right call, and we just got to work this issue out the best we can.
Well, I know that perhaps the reasons behind it, Ben, are only just coming to light now, maybe, but do you have a notion as to why this happened? Was it just because the wind speed's that much stronger today? Was it putting extra pressure in places that perhaps they weren't ready for?
No, I mean, it's obviously strong winds, but we've trained in much stronger winds than this, and the boat, the wing, the components are designed for these conditions. Like I said, we've never had a failure like this before, so it's a real strange one for us. We'll obviously review it later and through this evening and try and work out exactly what's gone wrong, but for now we're just focused on trying to get ourselves back out for the next race.
And is it a ginger enough situation right now that you can't really bear off and even bear off at all to go down the channel? Do you have to actually back the boat all the way into your base?
Yeah, that's right, exactly. We can't load the wing up at all. So we, as you can see, we've got the pusher and the chase boat. We're just trying to back ourselves in, and yeah, it's a tough situation to be in for us right now.
A crunching sound is typically the sign of carbon fiber. Is it fair to say this is a carbon fiber piece?
Yeah, it's carbon fiber related for sure. It's, you know, there's obviously a very complex control system within the wing, and we've got some issues in there.
Okay, Ben, listen, all the best. We wish you well for a speedy recovery. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, guys.
Sorry about that.
So, a sorry tale for Land Rover BAR and Sir Ben Ainsley's team. They are hard at work trying to sort out their technical issues. They have a spare wing, so perhaps that's the one that will be put to use tomorrow. Maybe they will get the other one fixed in time, Ken. Who knows?
Yeah, that camber arm, you know, it's the main control that keeps the main element, or the front side of the wing, and the back flap. It controls the relationship between the two. Fact is that if there's no camber arm, the wing will continue to fold. It'll continue to put more camber in itself until it finally breaks, and you just physically can't sail with these wings without that control.
So plenty to do for the British as they contemplate being 2-0 down already against the Kiwis in the Louis Vuitton America's Cup Challenger playoffs. Best of 9, remember, so the first to 5 wins, whichever team manages that, moves through to the final itself. Victory over the Japanese, for the Japanese over the Swedes in the other semi-final, and we're going to be seeing them in action yet again very, very soon indeed. Bit of thinking to do for Artemis Racing. It wasn't a bad performance by any stretch, but just edged out by Dean Barker's SoftBank Team Japan. Leading the Swedish Challenge in this America's Cup is Australian hotshot skipper Nathan Outridge, remember, Olympic gold medalist at the London Games in 2012, silver medalist in Rio 4 years later, and a 6-time world champion in both the Moth and 49er dinghy classes. It's fair to say Outridge is one of the most decorated and exciting sailors in this year's fleet, but stepping up to skipper an America's Cup team is a different challenge entirely.
It's an interesting job being skipper of the sailing team. Two of the guys on board grind backwards and they're basically looking you in the eyes, and so you've got to have this blue steel look in your face regardless of how much of a situation you have on at the back. If you drop your face, then they lose confidence in you, so you've just got to lead by example, and I've really enjoyed doing that. I think I've always thought of leadership as a deeds not words kind of position. You know, it's one thing to say I'm going to do this and do that and do the whole rah, rah, rah and try and rev everyone up. But I think if I can just find my comfort zone, which is generally pretty quiet, pretty chilled, pretty relaxed about things, then I hope people can come with me for that ride. I might seem reserved and calm and quite relaxed when it comes to racing. But once you get on the boat and the racing begins and the pre-start begins, it's all about making very tactical, wise decisions to outplay the other boats. I always feel it's smarter to try and put yourself in strong positions and not need to be aggressive and actually win the race out after the start. But time will tell what's going to be best.
So Nathan Outridge looking to come from behind in this semi-final up against Dean Barker and SoftBank Team Japan. They are next up. So a dramatic day on the Great Sound out here in Bermuda. The battle lines drawn yet again between these two and the Japanese, this time with port entry. Let's bring in Joey Newton once more. He's out on the water for us today, part of the Oracle Team USA crew. What did you pick up, Joey, from the opening duel between this pair that might be a factor for what we're about to see now?
Well, Ali, I really thought the Japanese looked really fast, especially upwind. They seemed to stretch away from Artemis. One of the interesting points of that race is I think it's one of the first pre-starts where the boats haven't engaged at all. It'll be interesting to see if that changes for this one, given that there might be a speed deficit to Artemis, whether they choose to engage the Japanese a little more.
And Joey, is there anything on board Artemis that you can see that would be actively tweaked in between? I mean, obviously you can't change foils, you can't change big parts, but is there any little parts you think that they could be tweaking to try to gain that speed back?
There's very little you could do, given the time that they had, Ken, to change the boat at all. So the things they're wanting to change would be their foil area. Maybe they want to go to something a little smaller, but there's just not enough time to change in between races. So these boats will be the same basic machines that raced in that first race.
Race number 2 of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup Challenger semi-final between Dean Barker's SoftBank Team Japan and Nathan Outridge's Swedes of Artemis Racing. And this extraordinary battle that is ongoing in the entry box. Ken, do we see aggressive tactics from either crew just yet?
I would be shocked if we didn't see aggressive tactics between the crews. It's really perfect conditions right now. Here you see Outridge kind of roaring at Japan, but Japan fending them off rather aggressively. Again, going down to the bottom of the box, down toward this yellow ley line. Only 25 seconds to go. They actually have a fair distance to go to the start. They both got pretty deep. Outridge trying hard to gain an overlap.
Seemingly doing a pretty good job, but he's not left himself a whole lot of room.
10 seconds to go before the start. If there's an overlap, he would be aggressively luffing. He's claiming there was an overlap. We're about to find out.
And they're away. Protest lodged by the Swedes, but it's been dismissed by Richard Slater, the chief umpire, and the Japanese are clear. Clear and ripping it. Just hammering across the surface of the water. But in hot pursuit, the Swedes, who are right on their tail.
Kind of a textbook start by Dean Barker. The port tack entry, led back, got down towards that ley line, kind of took away all parts, all water access for Artemis Racing, and really, I mean, that was just a good, solid, textbook start in this modern day America's Cup. Look at that. Look at that whether overlap or not. Artemis is claiming there might have been an overlap right there, and obviously Richard Slater could take a look at his screens down to the centimeter and decide that there wasn't, and then just simply a better angle for SoftBank Team Japan into that mark. Very solid start by Dean Barker.
And so fractional.
Yeah,
as ever, these decisions, aren't they? I mean, Nathan Adridge should picked up really good pace to come in with that hook maneuver at the start, and just another, what, foot and a half, perhaps?
Our sport has always been about a game of inches, especially the higher the professional level in any part of the sport of sailing, the closer, you know, the boat on boat, like we say, the hand-to-hand combat, and then you start doing it all at 30+ knots. So it certainly puts a whole new element of a whole new definition of what close really is, going 30+ knots.
So the wind speed's really good today and perfect for foiling. What about the direction and the variability of the wind out there, Ken? What can you tell us?
Yeah, very small wind shift, but on this first part of the leg, wind shifts really don't make a whole lot of difference because both boats essentially went to the boundary, jibed once, jibed twice going in. Now let's see if Artemis chooses to do that difficult maneuver at the bottom gate, that jibe, and round the other side and create the split.
Quality clinical maneuver from the Japanese. Here are the Swedes in action, following behind.
They don't create the split.
Setting up. Fine. 3, 2, 1, go forward.
The Japanese will be well pleased to have got off to the start that they did in that opening semi-final. You were describing them in some regards in advance of this event as a whole as something of a sleeper. And you know, that given the speeds that we knew they'd been recording around here in practice and the challenges that they'd been laying down, it was evident that they were going to be very, very tough challenges.
Surprising, with only 3 wins in the double round robin series, and a platform that everybody really thought was pretty darn quick. They were ahead in many races. They were strong. They won 6 of their 9 starts, or sorry, 6 of their 10 starts. A drag race. This is a little litmus test again for Artemis. If they did make any tweaks, we'd probably pick them up right now, because this is where they certainly fell behind the Japanese in race number 1.
Want to hit him here? No, go the other side of him. Keep pushing fast, please. Copy, building.
Chris Draper, I really like Chris Draper's tone of voice on board the boat. As a helmsman, you always want your tactician to be calm, cool, and collected, and that was, he put a please in there.
3, 2, 1, go forward.
Well brought up. Politeness at all times, even when you're hurtling along the water at close to 40 knots.
Quite clear. Nice tack, boys.
And it does seem to be a calm operation, the Japanese today.
They better be, because Artemis is not going slow.
So the Japanese just about in front. Dean Barker with this tremendous experience behind him, so much America's Cup history and a burning desire to right the wrongs of 2013 when in charge of the Kiwi boat. He surrendered that 8-1 lead to the Americans in San Francisco.
I think a little right-hand shift on this part of the race course right here actually allowed the Japanese to sail a little bit higher, maybe a little more wind pressure on the right-hand side, and certainly a little bit of a right-hand shift. Chris Draper will be looking to connect the dots of dark water patches, of water pressure out there, because the boats, not only do they sail faster and more breeze, but they sail a higher wind angle towards the breeze, so it's net gain. It's all, there's nothing bad with wind pressure ever. See that wind pressure that they're in right now? You can actually see darker water up there in that area. So Draper is setting them up really nicely. He has to distinguish also, is it a cloud that's going overhead or is it actually a puff on the water? Those, I think those are clouds up above him on the top of the screen right now. But yeah, these guys are not going slow on Japan today. These are speeds out of them that we haven't seen yet.
There's so much secrecy and subterfuge in the America's Cup. You just wonder if they've been holding back a few tricks.
There we go. The conspiracy theorist is coming out in you.
That's what the Cup does to you, I think. I keep hearing about these secrets. I want to unearth some of them.
That's a fair point. You keep digging, son. They don't let them out. They don't let those secrets out very easily.
Need a few more spies in the camps. Each of the teams, of course, have people monitoring very carefully what the other teams are up to. I imagine that continues all the way through the Cup itself. Certainly with the crews that have been out here in Bermuda for some time, they've all had chase boats following developments, binoculars out, cameras out, photographs taken.
The key Oracle spy right now is Joey Newton on the water, because he works for us technically, I guess, today. But Joey, anything you see going on the race course right now that you can bring back to your mates in the Oracle? And by the way, every team has had the opportunity to be in Joey's position out here, so this is not something that's exclusive to Oracle Team USA. We invite all teams to give us a reporter on the water. But is there anything out there you've seen today, Joey, that strikes a chord?
Oh, look, Kenny, I mean, all the teams out here that have been racing have been sailing sort of better than I would have thought. Even BAR, when they got to that burst bottom mark, I actually thought they were in pretty good shape. A big surprise has been I expected Artemis to be a lot quicker than they were in this wind condition, and in the past they have been. So we're trying to figure out from our team's perspective what they've done to mode their boat differently. They've obviously moded their boat for less wind than this, and knowing what they have done is the key thing to understanding these boats and the changes that those guys have made.
Very good point. I tell you, you can't make many mistakes here, Ali, in the boat moding department. I mean, a best out of 9 series, first to 5, being down 0-2, all of a sudden, mistakes are not an option. It's a bit of a surprise, wouldn't you say?
Well, I just think it doesn't leave too much wriggle room, does it? A couple of mistakes, a couple of races down, it's suddenly a long way back, isn't it? And inevitably, those results creep into the minds of those who are on the wrong end of it. And then you get to the point where maybe some of them are questioning the confidence, questioning the belief, and that is one of those intangible things we see in all sports, which unquestionably plays a part. It's hard to read, it's hard to gauge and put a number on it, but it definitely plays a part, particularly when the stakes are so high and the pressure's so big. Both these teams with regulation grinding operations. No cyclaws on board either of these two. Relying on arm power, shoulder power, and just extraordinary lung capacity.
Another nice shift for the Japanese. Lucas Draper is having, you know, he was hard on himself in a couple of those races in the other series, in the round robin series. He was very quick. Whoopsie. Look out for that the rope there, Dean. That was Dean Parker. That was when your driver is doing somersaults in the middle of the trampoline, technically that's not a good sign. That's a mistake you do not want to make often. Look at that. Could that possibly be?
Extraordinary. In that instance, I was chuckling only because it is a tricky thing to do, but everything went wrong as a result, didn't it?
Looks like there's still, the shift is going back in their direction right at the last second, but all of a sudden that went from a large lead to a really tight one.
So turning upwind for the last time in the race, and these two are neck and neck. Swedes riding high in the water. This is game on.
Yeah, one shift away from being another Japan fading with a lead. You know, kind of that story that we told several times in the first round robin series. This is a right-hand shift away from Artemis all of a sudden creating a pass. They need a wind shift here right now, though. The other boat's going good. Without a wind shift or a mistake, they're not going to get by. They need a right-hand shift.
Yes, we're strong. Not too fast this shift, Dino.
Wow, they might be getting it. A little bit of a right-hand shift. Doesn't take much.
Well, they will know, won't they, that certainly here in Bermuda, there has been an issue with hanging on to the leads for the Japanese. Dean Barker and SoftBank Team Japan have built up nice advantages over their opponents in the course of events here, but they have struggled to cling on to them and see races out, and that is the question that Artemis Racing and Nathan Outridge are asking right now. Can you do it? Can you see it through? Have you got the composure? Have you got the precision in your maneuvers?
Certainly doing somersaults in the middle of the tack, if you're the driver, is not precision in the middle of a maneuver. Artemis is coming on strong here right now. I think not only are they going okay, but it feels to me that they're a little more in phase with the wind shifts versus Japan. See that angle difference right now. That means that there's a little better wind pressure for the guy to lure. Look at that angle difference. The Japanese are kind of falling down into the Swedes right now, and the Swedes may have taken the lead. Look at that angle difference. Wow.
Keep it quick.
Pressure being applied here by Artemis Racing. Nathan Outridge will have the bit between his teeth from here on in. He knows that it might just hinge on this with so few races comparatively to fall back upon. We were talking about that 2-0 advantage and what it might do to a side, to a team, if they got behind in that fashion.
Nice high mode by Artemis. Now, here comes the strategy. There is a boundary up here, straight up in front of these guys. They cannot go over that boundary. You see Artemis all of a sudden almost falling off their foils. Again, another slightly unforced error, or it could be a left-hand shift, more of a left-hand shift. Japan is on starboard when Artemis tacks, but Artemis they get the ability to tack at this boundary.
Well, they're running out of time.
Well, they get the ability to tack, and SoftBank is going to have to be clear. They tack right away.
All right.
This is going to be very interesting. It's extremely close.
Artemis had a little better tack right there. Wow, a much better tack. Look at the boat speeds coming out of that tack. Again, another bit of an unforced error. They were 4 or 5 knots faster coming out of that tack. In what was
much got to pull on around left skate,
smooth for the Japanese. I mean, looking solid. They were out to a 200-meter lead. We've seen them do this before, and goodness, I didn't expect this. They were sailing just seemingly better today.
That's got to be a concern as they move forward.
That last tack by Artemis right at that boundary was an exceptional tack. They kept speed on coming out of that tack as well as anything we've seen. Hard to do in a pressure situation. Attacking smack on top of, right in front of SoftBank Team Japan, using that wing wash to slow them down. They're going to try to do everything possible to gain every inch possible coming into this gate.
And that's spoiling tactics.
Look at the anemometer in the front of the boat barely turning. Isn't that interesting? Right up there, that's an anemometer in the front of the SoftBank boat. It was barely even spinning for some reason.
So the Swedes already up to 37 knots of speed, and Japanese with it all to do from here.
Hammered down. This is a boat speed contest now. This is a smooth boat speed contest right now. No errors to be found for either boat if they want to win this race. Artemis looks solid right now, don't they?
Big puck in two. Go, boys. Listen at me a bit, buddy.
One or two anxious moments for Dean Barker here, knowing that he has everything to do and no time to do it.
Puffy, though, I mean, there's another boat that we just saw there. Japan was going 10 knots faster than the Swedes in that particular case. Where are you lining up on these little puffs on the water right now? That is the crucial factor as we come down into gate number 6.
If it starts to happen, we set up immediately, okay?
Let's bring in Joey Newton again, part of Oracle Team USA. He's out on the water for us. We're talking about these puffy wind shifts. Joey, is it immediately obvious to you that that's what's going on out there?
A little bit, Ali. I just think it was a couple of mistakes from Team Japan that really led into what we're seeing. They had a really bad jibe into the bottom. That sort of ate up most of their lead. A bad wind shift at the top, and then Artemis did a fantastic tack where Japan did a pretty average one, and it just translated straight into a pass, and the lead you see for Artemis to have here. So the guys from Japan would be pretty disappointed with that little part of the race, I think.
Hopefully we'll be able to look at it again, Ali, but it looked to me that they had a bad tack, Japan did. They stuffed the bows in the tack, and that instability is what then flung their driver onto the trampoline, and it got him even more out of kilter. Meters of a lead have turned into 300 meters in no time. I really thought we were going to start seeing fewer of these mistakes. The Japanese are going to be very frustrated with that mistake.
Well, the final reach to the finish is not far away. Remember, just the shortest of runways into the finish line.
No quit in Artemis. Give these guys credit. We were kind of writing them off there for a few minutes. Shame on us. I think this is the first potential win with the goggles, too. So maybe that superstition could be off. We might see him again.
It's the goggles what won it. Still hammering down at 36 knots of speed. They are screaming across the water, and this will be their first win of the Challenger playoff semi-final. The Swedes victorious over the Japanese and leveling things up at 1 point apiece. Dean Barker tumbling on the platform and Nathan Outridge capitalizing. Yet again, they've surrendered a healthy lead, and that will be the most concerning factor of all, I would have thought, for Dean Barker and his crew.
At the end of the day, they're going to be very pleased with their boat speed, I think, as Joey was reporting out there.
I got a shift from God on that one.
The shift from God, that was the angle difference, going all the way across. After that bad tack, that angle difference between the two boats going all the way across the race course where they got super close by the boundary. I did it in.
So good work from the Swedes, and this is how the race unfolded, leg by leg.
Passes are what we're here for. The modern day America's Cup race course is certainly designed for passes, keep the boats tight together, and sure enough, it all worked just fine in that race for all of us fans.
And all of that decided in double quick time. This is the start of the race itself, and a real joust, a real jostle.
Attempt at a hook by Artemis. They actually pushed their protest button here, thinking they had an overlap. As we saw, they never did. This was kind of a textbook, really well done start by Dean Barker. Stayed up on his foils through all those maneuvers and had the ability to accelerate with a better angle to mark one. There it is, maybe a slight overlap. By the time he luffed, there obviously to get around the mark and to maybe try to show Chief Umpire Richard Slater that he was trying to make a luff. There was no overlap there for sure by the time he luffed, and there we had it. Dean Barker had a textbook, very smooth start. Leg four, they just a couple really unforced errors, plunged into the water a couple times. The bows dig in.
So a victory for the Swedes. Let's have a word with their helmsman, Nathan Outridge. Nathan, well done. Congratulations. You're on the board in the semi-finals. Great turnaround. What was it down to from your opening race today to what we've just seen?
Got a really nice lane up the middle on starboard and used the boundary nicely to take the lead.
Nathan, this has actually been a challenge here so far. What do you see in boat speed between the two boats?
I don't think there's much in it, to be honest. We thought we had a click of extra pace on the reach in that first race, but once you get around Mark 1, there's really nothing in it between these two boats. It's more about where you position the boats around the course, and as you can see, it's great racing at it.
So we saw a key moment of the race when you were leading them into the left-hand boundary, and you guys just nailed attack. Can you tell that attack is going to be great? I mean, some of these tacks are 5-knot speed differences. Can you tell a great tack versus a non-great tack?
Yeah,
like halfway through?
Absolutely. It all comes down to how good that board drops. When the board drops nicely, you can spin the boat quite quickly. If you get a slow board drop, then you have to wait a while, and that's when the speed plummets. So we needed a good one there, and we got one.
Nathan, thank you very much for your time. Congratulations. 1 point apiece between the Japanese and the Swedes after the opening day of the Challenger Playoff semi-finals. Here's confirmation of those results then. So the Kiwis having a pretty straightforward day, a very dramatic and troublesome afternoon for Sir Ben Ainsley and Land Rover BAR. Victory for the Japanese in the first race against the Swedes, and then the tables turned in the race that we have just seen. So there's confirmation of the 2 victories for New Zealand. They are 2-0 up in this best-of-9 series. The first team to 5 wins will move on through to the final. 1-1 between the Swedes and the Japanese. Tomorrow, the Challenger Playoff semi-finals will resume, of course. And first up, Great Britain against New Zealand, and all eyes will be on the Land Rover BAR wing to see whether it has been fixed, whether it is a new one altogether. They have the most to do. Semi-finals underway. The British suffering a gut-wrenching setback in the opening race of the day, and repairs underway. They face a real tussle to recover now from 2-0 down against the New Zealanders, who are off to something of a flyer.